Hey guys, picture this. You stumble into a moonlit grove where the trees gossip louder than your group chat, and the air smells like a mix of fresh pine. And the lingering regret of that third cup of coffee you swore you'd never have, it's kinda mystical and a little creepy. But that's the charm. Before we drift deeper, smash that like button if you enjoy wandering where the Wi-Fi signal goes to die. And drop a comment telling me the weirdest place you've ever tried to nap. Now dim the lights, grab a cozy blanket, and maybe keep a flashlight handy, just in case the fireflies decide to audition for a rave. You hear the soft rustle of leaves whispering like an ancient bedtime story. Feel the cool moss under your feet squish like a soggy sock, and sense a faint, sweet perfume that could coax even your most stubborn insomnia into surrender. Ever wonder why Alara stepped gingerly onto the bridge, her heart pounding like a drum at a concert, as she felt the rush of reality slip through her fingers like water. With each step, the wooden boards creaked and groaned, almost as if whispering secrets, urging her to take the leap into the unknown. When she finally crossed, the world transformed in a flash, a breathtaking panorama of golden landscapes under a sky peppered with shimmering stars, twinkling like a million friendly eyes winking at her. The air was infused with the sweet scent of adventure, mingled with the heady aroma of blooming roses and freshly baked dreams. Welcome to dreamland. The flowers seemed to sing as they stretched and swayed, their vibrant colors a symphony for the senses, pulling Alara deeper into this enchanting realm where each breath made her feel more alive than ever before. In a quaint village snuggled against the edge of an ancient, sprawling forest, there lived a girl named Lyra, possessed by a wild curiosity that often kicked the doors wide open on her imagination. Picture this, a fog-kissed dawn, where the air shimmered with frost like a bedazzled blanket draped over the earth. To the layman, it might just be a morning hush, but Lyra heard the subtle whispers of the woods, those soft, ticklish whispers that tickled her ears and ignited her dreams. Those trees have stories to tell, she'd say to her perplexed grandmother, who was probably just worried about who would carry home the groceries. But Lyra was undeterred by practicality. Adventure was etched deeply in her heart, a roadmap to destinations unseen and experiences untold, just waiting for a restless soul to follow. One particular morning, draped in the gauzy embrace of sunrise, Lyra stumbled upon something extraordinary, a shimmering path that snaked into the forest's embrace like a ribbon of liquid silver. It glittered with an invitation that could make even a lazy cat leap in excitement. She stepped closer, her heart beating a wild drum as if trying to synchronize with the forest's hidden symphony. The sweet scent of pine mingled with hints of earth, making every breath a delicious taste of mystery. Some say that when your senses are heightened, it's like experiencing a 4D movie without the annoying glasses. Lyra felt like a hero in one of those tales, caught up in a world infused with wonder and the promise of adventure, ready to take the plunge into the unknown. As she crossed onto the shimmering path, the feelings enveloping her were thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Little did she know, Lyra was about to step into a web of enchantments thicker than Grandma's secret cookie recipe. The trees loomed high above her, their boughs whispering with wind-blown secrets, and the ground beneath her feet was a patchwork of fallen leaves that crunched delightfully as she walked, nature's very own version of popcorn. Birds chirped in her imagination. They were gossiping about the silly squirrel from 2 trees over, who'd just fallen into a particularly embarrassing acorn predicament. Lyra giggled at the thought. Feeling at home amidst the chaos of the wild, nature had its own kind of humor, an irony woven into every rustle and caw, as if it knew precisely how to charm its visitors. With every step deeper into the woods, Lyra felt like a sleep-deprived detective hunting down clues in a dreamscape. The sunlight filtered through the foliage, creating dappled patterns on the forest floor that resembled the spilled remnants of a painter's palette. And oh, the forest talked. Its voice was a soothing blend of rustling leaves and gurgling brooks that sang lullabies to the restless and weary. She inhaled deeply, reveling in the musky scent of damp earth mingling with the sweetness of blooming wildflowers. It was like wandering into an olfactory Tinder date gone spectacularly right, each smell promising thrilling encounters in exchange for courage. And courage was what she needed, because the further she journeyed, the more the air sparkled with a kind of magic that buzzed against her skin and tugged at her adventurous spirit. Yet beneath the enchanting allure hung a skosh of foreboding, like the unexpected plot twist in a fairy tale where the unsuspecting hero forgets to check their shoes for enchanted thorns. Lyra felt it creeping up on her, an undeniable sense that she was being watched by unseen eyes amid the wild. Those trees had witnessed centuries of tales, time-honored and twisted, and she swore she could almost hear their knowing chuckles. Lyra's heartbeat echoed a rapid tattoo, firing the last of her worries into the wind. With a grin plastered on her face, one she reserved for moments of sheer audacity, she plunged headlong into the dreamscape, ready to dance with magic and mischief, and whatever other shenanigans the Enchanted Forest had planned for an intrepid girl with starry dreams and muddy shoes. As Lyra stepped into the heart of the Enchanted Forest, the sunlight flickered through the emerald leaves like a disco ball at a legendary 80s party. Each step was cushioned by a carpet of moss that squished delightfully underfoot, almost like stepping through a fluffy cloud of green. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet scent of wildflowers mixed with the earthy aroma of damp soil. An intoxicating combination that made her feel as if she was dancing with nature. But amid the beauty, a whisper of uncertainty threaded through her heart as shadows began to stretch like sullen fingers, reminding her that not every shimmering leaf promised joy and whimsy. It was like realizing your favorite fairy tale has a plot twist where the charming prince is actually a rogue goblin in disguise. Unsettling, yet oddly compelling. Suddenly, a rustle in the branches above broke her reverie, and out swooped Orin, the wise old owl with feathers as gray as a stormy sky, and eyes that sparkled with centuries of secrets. Ah, young wanderer, he hooted, settling on a low branch, his gaze pinning her with an intensity that could almost make a lesser creature squirm. This forest holds wonders, but tread lightly, for enchantment is often a veil draped over shadows. His words were heavy with warning, like an ominous spoiler alert for a movie she'd yet to see, reminding her that magic and danger often dance hand in hand, like two awkward cousins at a family reunion. Lyra couldn't help but chuckle nervously. Who wouldn't want advice from an owl who looked like he'd just come from a medieval symposium on stargazing? As she listened to Orin, Lyra's senses tingled with the vibrant life surrounding her, the chirping of cicadas buzzing like tiny cell phones left unanswered, and the distant trickle of a stream that lured her with promises of refreshment. The colors of the forest were magnified, bright pinks and fiery oranges splashing against deep greens, as if an artist had thrown caution to the wind and let inspiration run wild. However, as Lyra marveled at a curious mushroom that bobbed rhythmically to some unheard beat, she couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps she wasn't alone in this magical realm. The shadows danced at the edges of her vision, flickering just outside the dazzling light like a bad signal on an old television screen, leaving her with a creeping sense of unease that made her skin prickle. It was as if the forest itself had a pulse, a heartbeat that thrummed beneath her feet, whispering secrets both alluring and foreboding. With Orin's words echoing in her ears, Lyra ventured deeper, each step filled with a curious mix of eagerness and trepidation, like a child peeking into a forbidden cookie jar. She noticed a bit of shimmering pixie dust floating through the air, glimmering like fairy confetti, inviting her to follow its irresistible trail. But just as she began to chase a butterfly that seemed to beckon her with its sparkling wings, a loud snap from a nearby bush startled her, making her heart race like a rabbit with an espresso shot. She turned to see a mischievous squirrel eyeing her, expression that suggested he was plotting something diabolical, probably to steal her snack, or worse, her soul. Oh, the absurdity of it all in this enchanted realm. Even the wildlife seemed to have a flair for theatrics, blending whimsy with a pinch of mischief, as if auditioning for a role in a reality show about forest antics. As dusk settled, the forest transformed into a landscape of shadow and mystery, with the soft glow of bioluminescent plants illuminating the path ahead like neon signs at a midnight diner. Lyra felt a chill creep down her spine, for she knew that every enchanting sight held the potential for hidden dangers lurking just beyond her sight, like the sour notes of a song that, when played, would ruin the entire melody. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Orin perched behind her, ready to share more riddles of wisdom, or perhaps a warning about enchanted traps disguised as friendly feasts. As the last rays of sunlight surrendered to the night, Lyra couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of her situation. 1 minute, she was a curious girl enchanted by wonders, and the next, she was a potential star in the forest's own version of Survivor, Magical Edition. It was a journey that promised the unknown, and for better or worse, she was determined to unravel the secrets beneath the canopy. In the heart of the Enchanted Forest, shadows danced like mischievous sprites, twisting between the moonlit trees. Lyra stood at the edge, a dense fog curling around her ankles, heavy with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers. Beneath her feet, the ground pulsed with a strange energy, as if the forest itself was alive, whispering secrets long buried. With every shiver of wind through the branches, she felt a tug on her soul, a call to venture deeper, promising dreams more wonderful than any she had ever imagined, if only the horrifying thought didn't creep in like an unwelcome relative. What if this place wanted something from her? Irony was rich here. The very dreams that beckoned her also glimmered with unseen chains of consequence. As she wandered further into the forest, Lyra was met with a cacophony of sounds. The rustle of leaves in spirited conversation, the distant hooting of owls offering unsolicited life advice, and the occasional snap of a twig, as if the forest itself was burgeoning with spectators. Each step felt like a step into an ancient tale, half fantasy, half nightmare, where heroes found treasure and fools tossed caution to the winds. The scent of pine hung thick in the air, sharp and invigorating, but a deep undertone of decay lurking like a bad pun in a dad joke. Lyra's heart raced. She was drawn to the shimmering lights that winked at her like a siren's call, yet echoed with a sinister undertow. The very essence of a dream that could easily turn into a nightmare. With each passing moment, Lyra could feel the pull of the forest's magic, tide of emotions swirling around her like a dreamy fog. Illuminated by soft, ethereal glows, her desires tumbled forth. Laughter, love, and adventure danced in front of her like those cartoon characters who can't help but kick up their feet and break into song. But lurking just beneath her skin was the knowledge that many had ventured here before, lured by visions of grandeur, only to find themselves tumbling into an abyss of slumber from which they'd never awaken. It was as if this enchanted glade was a wild host, cheekily laughing at the hilarity of misplaced intentions, their eternally snoozing bodies dotted across the forest floor like forgotten cushions, proving that sometimes, in a world of dreams, you might just oversleep your alarm. The truth flickered to life in the recesses of her mind like a projector, spitting out old scenes of forgotten lore. Intentions must be pure to navigate this dreamscape. Lyra grappled with her own swirling thoughts. Were her motives kind or selfish? Did she truly seek the forest's wonders, or was she merely running from the haunted echoes of her own insecurities? As uninvited fear crawled under her skin, she could hear the sarcastic echoes of her high school friends calling out, "Run, Forest, run." A phrase that now felt as naive as it did hilarious. The air thickened with magic, intoxicating and suffocating. And somewhere in that labyrinth of thoughts, she began to realize that to step into this realm, she would first have to wrestle with the truths she had buried deep within her own heart. Time was a fleeting specter, as Lyra felt a growing urgency. She could not remain lost among the whispers and winks of slumber. The trees swayed, their branches reaching out like 1,000 greedy fingers, and she could almost hear the laughter of those already ensnared, echoing with a dark humor that turned her stomach. So she chased after the last flickers of hope, propelled by determination and a touch of fear, navigating dreams turned dangers, racing against the clock that ticked like a heartbeat in her ears. Each step felt like a countdown. She recalled the old saying, "Get your head out of the clouds." But here, she realized the clouds had a tendency to swallow you whole. Hence, with one last surge of willpower bursting from within, she prepared to confront the heart of the storm, the gathering storm, where magic danced and traps lay in wait. As the sun dipped below the jagged silhouettes of ancient trees, casting long shadows like the fingers of forgotten giants, Lyra stood at the forest's edge, heart pounding like a tribal drum. The air crackled with magic, a scent of damp earth and hidden secrets swirling around her. She could hear the gentle rustle of leaves whispering tales of bravery and sacrifice, urging her forward. And there it was, the dream weaver, a spirit as elusive as a childhood memory, its shimmering form weaving illusions before her very eyes. With every flick of its ethereal fingers, Lyra felt her resolve harden. This was no mere spirit, but a living embodiment of the forest's enchantment, and she was ready to dance with destiny, or at least try not to trip over her own feet in the process. Orin, her steadfast companion with a heart of gold and a talent for talking too much, stood beside her, his brow furrowed in concentration. Remember, Lyra, you have to unlock the power of your heart, he implored, with all the intensity of a bad motivational speaker at a seminar. Lyra shot him a glance that spoke volumes. Thanks for the pep talk, Captain Obvious. But deep inside, she felt the warmth of his belief enveloping her like a cozy blanket. Turning her gaze back to the dream weaver, she could feel the weight of the forest pressing in, its ancient boughs creaking like old men, reminiscing over lost loves. The air thickened with anticipation, and she knew that this was her moment, whether she was ready for it or not. Suddenly, a rustling caught her attention, and out bounded a mystical deer, its coat shimmering like silver in the waning light. Its large, expressive eyes blazed with an intelligence that hinted at centuries of wisdom. Lyra felt an unspoken bond form between them, a connection woven from the threads of shared struggle and hope. The deer nudged her gently, as if saying, "No pressure, just trust your instincts." Lyra chuckled softly, imagining how ridiculous this whole quest must look. An earnest girl, a wisecracking sidekick, and a sparkling deer yelling motivational quotes at an all-powerful dream weaver. Yet deep down, she understood. Magic often appeared wrapped in the guise of the improbable. The battle began, the forest erupting into chaos as vivid illusions spiraled around them like a carnival gone haywire. Trees transformed into twisted serpents, roots snaked up from the ground, as if trying to pull her back into their earthy embrace. Lyra felt the chill of fear creep along her spine, but she clung to her heart's power like a lifeline. Each breath she took was filled with the earthy scent of moss and the pungent tang of wildflowers, grounding her as the dream weaver flung visions that flickered between nightmare and wonder, with Orin chanting encouragement and the deer standing protectively by her side. It was a fight where comically mismatched warriors faced down their greatest foe. And yet, beneath the lunacy, a fire ignited within her, sparking memories of laughter and love, infusing her with a fierce determination. As Lyra summoned her inner strength, she felt a rush of energy course through her veins. The moment crystallized. The spirit's illusions dissolved like morning fog in sunlight. There, amidst the fading echoes of the dream weaver's power, Lyra found clarity, a simple truth that she had always known, but often forgot. The heart, when filled with hope and kindness, could illuminate the darkest shadows. With a beating heart that echoed through the forest like a victory drum, She channeled her essence into a brilliant pulse of light that encircled the dream weaver. It flickered momentarily, stunned into silence, a reflection, perhaps, of its own forgotten dreams. And as the forest shuddered, still alive with magic, but no longer trapped in shadows, Lyra realized this was just the beginning of her journey, an awakening to the tapestry of wonder that lay ahead. The Enchanted Forest, once cloaked in silence, erupted in a symphony of rustling leaves and joyous laughter as the spell shattered like glass under the weight of truth. Sunlight filtered through the canopies, painting the ground with dappled gold, as if nature itself had decided to throw a victory party. Lyra emerged from the spell's grip, hair wild and eyes ablaze with the spark of newfound freedom. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers, each inhalation a reminder of life reclaimed. Fluffy clouds drifting lazily overhead seemed to mirror her elevated spirit, while she stumbled joyously over roots like a newborn colt, giddy at her first taste of freedom after a long slumber. Welcome back to the world of the waking, where grass tickles beneath your toes, and scent marks each second like a playful perfume. But the forest wasn't the only one awake. The souls she freed danced around her, half visible like forgotten echoes, remnants of a barbershop quartet, not quite tuned to the right pitch. Each one had a story, whispers mingling with the breeze, tales of despair twisted into laughter, as they welcomed Lyra back to the village. Yet she felt a heaviness in her own chest, as if she carried their stories like a backpack filled with bricks, proof that she had been changed by the time spent in their dreamscape. Who wouldn't be? After all, one just doesn't stroll through dream realms and come back quite the same, akin to a cartoon character who slipped on a banana peel into an alternate universe. Returning to her village was bittersweet. The familiar sights felt like memories touched by life's rough sieve. The warm, inviting smell of freshly baked bread wafted from Aunt Gertrude's bakery, calling to her like a siren's song, luring her back into the mundane comforts of daily life. Yet, even as she savored the warm bread and butter melting into golden pools, Lyra sensed something intoxicating take root in her heart, an insatiable yearning for that ethereal landscape where reality blurred with dreams. The people of her village, with their simple laughter and predictable routines, now seemed to her like characters in a quaint sitcom, familiar, yes, but utterly devoid of the magical layers she danced through. Have you ever tried explaining to someone that you've just come back from a realm of whimsy, where unicorns and talking mushrooms held court? That's right, awkward silence. Lyra's confession hung in the air like an awful dad joke. The whispers of the Enchanted Forest settled into her mind like plot points in a favorite movie, vivid scenes replaying like a DVD stuck on repeat. As she sat by the flickering firelight in the village square, sharing tales that no one quite believed, she learned the bittersweet irony of sharing dreams. They often evaporate like dew under the sun when met with incredulity. Yet, there was an undeniable magic in her heart, a pulse that quickened with each memory of that verdant wonderland, reminding her that reality often lays the groundwork, while dreams fill the spaces in between. In the days that followed, Lyra roamed her village, feeling both tethered and unbound, grasping at remnants of her miraculous journey like a child trying to catch butterflies. The whispers became her secret language, a tapestry of comfort and delight amidst the colors of her new world. Each time she closed her eyes, she could hear the forest calling her back, like a long-lost friend wanting to share gossip over a cup of enchanted tea. Though she walked the familiar paths, the knowledge that miracles still hid in shadows filled her with hope, like a gentle embrace from a guardian spirit. And just like that, in her heart, Lyra found a delicate balance, one not of heavy stones and rigid choices, but of dancing on the edge between dreams and waking life, a tightrope walker on the path to her newfound destiny. In the heart of the moonlit grove, where ancient trees twisted high above like the gnarled fingers of long-forgotten giants, sat the quaint village of Silvershade. The village, lulled by the soft whispers of the wind, held an air of mystery that captivated the curious minds of its inhabitants. Among them was Alara, a sprightly young girl with unkempt hair and wide-open eyes that sparkled with the lure of adventure. Every evening, she would perch on the crooked stone wall of her backyard, listening intently to the elders' spinning tales of glowing spirits that danced in the moonlight, their laughter echoing like distant chimes. What if they're just lost? She mused aloud, imagining the wayward spirits checking their ghostly smartphones to find their way home like the rest of us mortals, ever so tech-obsessed in the digital age. One evening, fueled by a wild mix of youthful bravado and a touch of insanity, Alara slipped away from the comfort of home and ventured into the grove, guided by the silvery glow of the full moon. The air was thick with the earthy scent of damp soil and decaying leaves, and the night was alive with a cacophony of rustling branches and hooting owls, as though minstrels serenaded the shadows. As she gained confidence, each step became a dance with the night, her heart beating in rhythm with the pulsing life surrounding her. But with every crunch of twigs underfoot, a sense of something more profound entered the air, a weighty silence that suggested the presence of something or someone lurking just out of sight. What would Indiana Jones do? She wondered, half joking, as she kicked a pebble that skittered off into the dark. Then, just as she rounded a particularly twisted oak tree that seemed to lean in, as if eavesdropping on her musings, a shadow flickered across her path, stirrer than a sitcom character afraid of the dark. It was long and whispery, swirling and beckoning with a playful urgency that made her skin prickle with excitement and just a hint of trepidation. It had no face, no distinct features, just an aura that pulled at her curiosity like a moth to a flame. Unaware of the impending facepalm moment, Alara glanced back towards the village, a flicker of doubt darting through her mind. What if her friends Stephen and Rachel were right all along, as annoying as they were? But even with their endless warnings about ghosties and spirits, she felt an undeniable urge to move forward, as if the shadow promised secrets that could make even the most mundane tick-tock sensation seem like yesterday's news. So she followed the mysterious wisp deeper into the grove, leaving the familiar world of Silvershade behind, almost as if she were auditioning for a new film, where the lively heroine runs off into perilous adventure. The deeper she wandered, the more the woods changed. Trees arched their boughs into elegant arches, studded with fireflies, creating a natural cathedral of glowing wonder. Shadows danced around her like old friends reuniting, forming shapes that whispered forgotten tales of the grove. Excitement tripped through her veins, and the cool breeze carried echoes of laughter, both enchanting and eerie, wrapping around her like a silken shawl. Alara couldn't help but giggle nervously, feeling ridiculous and brave all at once, as if she were the star of a fantastical drama, with the world cheering her on while she danced between reality and the unknown. With each step Alara took, she felt the magic swelling around her, a vibrant force that seemed to throng with life, or perhaps something like a cosmic energy bar that would spin her off into another dimension. Yet within this shimmering beauty lurked a curious tension, a silent understanding that she was straddling the line between the living and the ethereal, like a teenager sneaking out past curfew, thrilling, but with just a hint of danger. Little did she know, this encounter with the beckoning shadow, this siren lure of the night, would mark the beginning of a journey that would twist the very fabric of her existence. She took a deep breath, heart pounding with anticipation and a tinge of fear, and whispered a prayer, or maybe just a quirky incantation she had learned from a fantasy book, before advancing toward the unknown, eager to discover whether adventure awaited her, or just another awkward family dinner back home. In the heart of the moonlit grove, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the air tasted of honey and dew, Alara took a breath, her heart racing like a rabbit on an espresso binge. She wasn't just wandering through a thicket of weeds and wildflowers. She was stepping into a realm shimmering with magic and mystery. Birds chirped a melodious warning, telling tales of spirits and souls entwined with the fabric of time. Little did she know, destiny was about to unveil itself in a way that would make even the most dramatic soap operas seem like a snooze fest. Suddenly, a radiant glow emerged from the trees, and there stood Leora, the spirit of the moonlit grove, bathed in silver light that flickered like bad karaoke in a dim bar. Leora was no ordinary being. She was a vision wrapped in silken moonlight, with eyes that sparkled like the night sky sprinkled with diamonds. And boy, did she have a tail as twisted as a pretzel. "The grove is withering away, my dear," she revealed, her voice a harmonious chime that sent shivers down Alara's spine. "Consumed by Gorath, a dark entity who aims to drain our magic like a thief at a candy store." Alara, with her pulse pounding like an offbeat drum, realized this was no simple stroll in the enchanted woods. It was a race against time to save a treasure that had stood for eons. The urgency weighed on her like an overstuffed backpack filled with guilt from finishing the last slice of pizza. To save the grove from Gorath's overshadowing shadow, Alara had to locate 3 sacred crystals, each one hidden deeper within the enchanted woods than a squirrel with an acorn stash. Leora persuasively described the crystal's powers, hinting they were not merely shiny baubles, but lifelines that held the essence of life in the grove. "Your journey won't be easy," Leora cautioned, a smirk playing at her lips. "Think of it as an epic quest, but without the legendary hero with the 7-foot sword or a camera crew." Alara nodded, bravely pushing the thrill of fear aside, her spirit ignited by the impending challenge. Much like the fandoms that had erupted in cinematic cheers and tears at pivotal movie moments, as she ventured deeper into the grove, the air turned thick with the scent of damp earth and the tang of wildflowers swirling around her like an aromatic hug. Shadows danced through the trees like cheeky imps playing tag, while the sounds of the forest offered a cacophony that might have made a heavy metal band proud. Tsunamis of adrenaline crashed over her with every snap of a twig underfoot. Her sleeves caught on branches like overzealous relatives at a family reunion, eager to keep her from moving forward. What kind of mysteries awaited? What strange creatures lurked in the darkness, waiting to audition for the role of obscure guardian of random crystal? Alara's heart thumped in a wild rhythm, a beat that echoed her determination. Every step brought her closer to the ley lines of ancient power, prompting visions of the transformative crystals that held the promise of salvation. Within this tapestry of magic, Alara vowed not to let Gorath snuff out the light of the grove. like an overzealous TV producer cutting the budget on a promising show. No, her heart bore the weight of hope, and she'd harness it like Mjolnir in the hands of Thor. Even as doubt danced like a mischievous fairy around the edges of her mind, Alara inhaled deeply, ready to face whatever weird trials lay ahead. With fierce resolve, she whispered a promise to the grove that she would rise to the occasion. Hair-curling perils be damned. Alara stepped into the heart of the moonlit grove, where an ancient air clung to every leaf and whispering breeze. The ground beneath her feet twisted and turned like a mischievous creature, mossy and alive, with secrets long forgotten. Sounds of rustling leaves danced around her, making her feel both welcomed and watched. It was a place where shadows flirted with light, and she could almost hear the echoes of laughter, albeit slightly maniacal, drifting through the mist. The first trial loomed ahead, guarded by a sprite named Thistle, whose green hair flared like wildfire under the glow of the moon. "Welcome, dear traveler. Care to play a game of wits?" He grinned, eyes sparkling with mischief. Alara couldn't help but think he looked like a cross between Tinker Bell and a hyperactive chihuahua. As she engaged in a battle of riddles with the cheeky sprite, the air buzzed with tension and magic. Thistle flitted around her, an annoyingly energetic little pest, tossing out questions like confetti, each one sharper than the last. Alara's mind raced. She could almost hear her own heartbeat competing with the whispers of the trees. Every answer spilled from her lips with cautious confidence, and Thistle's smirk morphed into surprise when she correctly solved his trickiest riddle, involving a lumberjack, a unicorn, and a singing fish. With a triumphant flap, Thistle vanished in a puff of glittering dust, leaving behind the shimmering crystal she had sought. Not too bad for a day out in the park, Alara smiled, pocketing the crystal, and ready to face whatever came next. But the path soon twisted into a shroud of fog thick enough to smother a horse, and the comforting tendrils of light faded into an ominous gloom. There, imposing and fierce, stood a wolf spirit with eyes like shards of ice. The sound of its growl sent shivers down Alara's spine, an echo that felt like the sharpness of 1,000 knives. She knew this trial would demand not just her bravery, but her heart, pulling her into a confrontation that wasn't about might, but about understanding. "You think you can face me?" The wolf rumbled, its voice a cacophony of gravel and thunder. Alara, throat dry and pulse pounding like a drummer on a caffeine high, took a deep breath and squared her shoulders, channeling the spirit of an arena fighter from a long-lost video game. With each instinct urging her to flee, Alara instead stepped forward, facing the spirit with an unwavering stare. The fog twirled around them like a silent spectator, as she recalled a moment of loss in her own life. How her beloved pet dog had once comforted her through thick and thin. "I don't seek conflict," she announced, her voice steady. "You guard this grove fiercely, but I wish only to prove my worth, not to fight." The wolf's icy gaze wavered, confusion flickering across its ancient face like static on a broken TV. It was in that moment of shared understanding that the haze lifted, revealing the crystal shimmering proudly behind the formidable guardian, who, surprisingly, now looked a tad more like a misunderstood puppy than a terrifying beast. With 2 crystals in her possession, Alara pressed on, but the weight of Gorath's shadow loomed larger with every triumphant step. The grove's air, thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, reminded her of both her victories and the peril that lingered. Finally, she approached an ancient tree, gnarled and twisted, its bark rough as an old biker's hand, yet adorned with a beauty only nature could conjure. The final trial awaited her, demanding compassion that felt as out of reach as a Netflix subscription at a Wi-Fi dead zone. As she laid her palm against the tree's rugged surface, a gentle pulse of warmth radiated through her fingers, and she realized the last challenge was not just another test, but a call to her very soul, forcing her to confront the soft, tender spaces she'd thought were forever sealed away. In a grove teeming with wonder, each trial was a story waiting to unfold, not just of the crystals, but of the person Alara was destined to become. As Alara stood before the twisting trees of the moonlit grove, the glow of the 3 crystals pulsated warmly in her palms. Each crystal was a gleaming jewel of hope, thrumming with the wisdom of the ancient spirits she had encountered along her treacherous journey. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, and a gentle breeze tangled her hair like a playful spectre. But her heart raced not with excitement, but with a gnawing dread as she approached Leora, only to find Gorath, the embodiment of shadow and malice, looming in the clearing. It was like spotting an old friend you never wanted to see again, particularly when they were armed with a darkness that could swallow light whole. And let me tell you, he looked awfully smug for a guy whose life was quite literally a horror movie in Technicolor. Gorath's voice slithered through the grove like a snake in the grass, taunting Alara with promises of power and dominion. "You think those pretty trinkets can save you?" he sneered, his sharpened teeth glinting like knives under the moonlight. The air crackled with tension, and Alara could feel the weight of the shadows swirling around her, whispering like a nasty rumor gone viral. But she stood firm, recalling the fiery spirits who had entrusted her with their essence, Hara, the spark of courage, and Lyra, the whisper of wisdom, with their energy coursing through her veins. Alara felt less like the scared girl who stumbled into this adventure, and more like a warrior ready to duel, even if that warrior hadn't had her morning coffee yet, with a fierce battle cry that could make even the hardest of medieval warriors take a second glance. Alara charged at Gorath, crystals blazing like supernovae in her hands. The moment she engaged, a wild symphony erupted, the clash of light and darkness echoing through the grove like a rock concert gone rogue. Gorath swung a dark tendril, but Alara danced around it, channeling the spirit magic she had gathered. Sparks flew as she unleashed the grove's enchantments. Every whispered blessing from the spirits formed a dazzling shield against his encroaching shadows. An electric smell filled the air, kind of like when you accidentally zap your toaster, and set off an unintended fire alarm. But hey, at least it was more exciting than last week's Netflix binge. Just as hope seemed dim, Alara called forth every ounce of bravery she possessed, heart pounding like a drum solo in a rock anthem. It was a wild gamble, but she thrust her crystals into the air as if summoning a meteor shower aimed right at Gorath. A torrent of luminous energy burst forth, cascading like a waterfall of starlight, enveloping the vile shadow in a brilliant light, painting the scene in hues that would make Van Gogh weep. Gorath shrieked, a sound that could curdle milk and raise the hairs on the back of your neck, as the magic surged forth, pushing back the darkness that had long plagued the grove. The people had built their lives on the stories of this grove, and now Alara became part of that legacy, a young girl wielding the forest's magic, as if she were wielding a lightsaber against the forces of evil. As Gorath dissolved into nothingness, laughter rang through the air, mixed with the joyful cries of the spirits. The grove had regained its luster, bathed in a warm glow that made even the ancient oaks seem to breathe a sigh of relief. Alara felt a rush of exhilaration, a sweet taste of victory, a mixture of success and a little bit of pride, like finishing a marathon dressed as your favorite superhero. Flattened leaves crunched underfoot as she walked, each step filling the night with magic and possibility. The balance of light and dark restored. The moonlit grove showed its true beauty once more, a tapestry of shimmering leaves and soft whispers, forever changed by a single act of selflessness. And as the stars twinkled overhead, Alara couldn't help but smile, knowing the spirits were cheering. And for once, her place within their legend was secure. The whispers of wind danced through the branches of the moonlit grove, a sanctuary now pulsating with vibrant life. With Gorath, the tyrant of shadows, toppled and vanquished, Alara stood at the heart of this rejuvenated paradise, where the freshest emerald leaves shimmered like sequins under the moon's radiant glow, as the spirits, with their ethereal forms swirling like smoke, surrounded her. They let out melodious laughter, an otherworldly sound that seemed to tickle the ears of every living creature nearby. The scent of damp earth, mixed with wildflowers in full bloom, filled the air, drawing in villagers like moths to a bright, buzzing flame. Finally, after what felt like an endless night, dawn broke, not just outside, but within the very soul of their beloved grove, heralding the beginning of a new era. Up, up she soared amidst a cacophony of laughter and gasps, as the grateful spirits lifted Alara high into the sparkling night sky. The moon casting a spotlight on her heroic ascent, she was transformed into a celestial figure, a trail of glowing stardust twinkling behind her in a glorious display, reminiscent of a supernova crossed with a fireworks show. Below, the villagers clapped and cheered, their voices and excitement weaving together into a single, ecstatic roar, louder than a crowd at a championship game. Alara could almost taste the salt of her own tears mingling with the unleashing joy of her victory. With every heartbeat, she promised to nurture this little corner of magic for all of Silvershade, a commitment sealed in the very fabric of this remarkable night. As she floated back to earth, the spirits twinkling around her like mischievous fireflies, Alara found herself enveloped in a warm embrace of adoration. The groves, once shriveled and darkened by despair, now echoed with life, birds chirping, crickets serenading, and a hint of wood smoke wafting from village hearths. The laughter was infectious, the joy of the townsfolk bubbling over like an overfilled cauldron. Children raced with wild abandon, still covered in dirt and grinning like they'd just discovered cake for breakfast. Gorath, the dark jester, was but a fading memory now, a punchline to a once terrifying joke, and Alara was the new star of this epic tale. With a mighty heart, Alara proclaimed her pledge to protect the grove, each word a seed planted in the minds of her followers. "Fear not," she cried, her voice ringing clear as the toll of a distant bell. "For as long as the moon rises, I shall guard our magic and preserve our stories." The villagers, lacquering their enthusiasm with laughter and cheer, shouted back their promises too, each of them concocting plans as wild as a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. A treehouse here, a festival there, among the villagers. Even the grousing elder Dimitri, with his beard like a tangle of ancient vines, cracked a triumphant smile, an uncommon sight, as if he finally understood that heroes could rise from the most unlikely places. Thus, as the moon bathed the grove in its silver light, legends began to ripple through Silvershade, each tale more grandiose than the last. Mothers recounted the story of how Alara danced with spirits while the stars bowed to her grace. And fathers spoke of Gorath's spectacular failure, turns out. He didn't have a great grasp of strategy, especially when facing a spirited young girl armed with nothing but her courage and a few handy spells. The flames of the bonfire crackled with excitement, lighting up the faces of the villagers as they celebrated the dawn of this new age. Every laugh, every cheer, every note of gratitude inscribed Dilara's tale into the very bark of the trees, ensuring the fables of the moonlit grove would echo through the ages, a testament to what bravery could achieve, and the magic that surrounded them all. In the heart of Eldenwood Forest, where the trees twisted and twined like a tangle of forgotten stories, Lyra wandered with a sense of trepidation mingled with courage. A thick mist hung in the air, curling around her ankles and clinging to her like an unwanted ghostly hug. The forest was alive with sounds, a cacophony of rustling leaves, the occasional snap of a twig like someone's brittle spine. Her heart raced, not entirely from fear, but from the thrill of stepping into the realm of myth. Lyra had always chased adventure like a squirrel after an acorn, driven by the echoes of tales spun by the village elders on stormy nights. But this was a whole new level of wild playground. As she approached the glade, whispers ghosted through the trees, soft yet insistent, as if the very air was alive with secrets long etched in the bark of ancient oaks. The scent of damp earth and rotting leaves filled her nostrils, a pungent perfume that told stories of decay and rebirth. With every step, Lyra felt the weight of history pressing upon her shoulders, a cloak woven from the fabric of sorrow and glory. Sunlight broke through the canopy in patches, illuminating the moss-covered stones that appeared almost to pulse with an otherworldly glow. Each one was like a forgotten watchman, waiting to share tales of the kingdom that once flourished in the shadow of these trees, before it crumbled into oblivion like that ill-fated sci-fi movie sequel everyone tried to forget. She stepped gingerly into the clearing, her senses alight with the electric whispers that tangled around her like ribbons of forgotten dreams. The sounds wrapped around her, a symphony of sighs and murmurs. If there was ever a forest that had a gossip network, this was it. Faint shadows flitted near the edges of her vision, flickering like badly timed jump scares in a classic horror flick. Lyra could just make out shapes weaving through the tall ferns, like players in a long-forgotten play, and her heart thudded with the rhythm of their echoes, urging her to listen closer. Unable to resist the allure, she crouched down, her curiosity piquing at the thought of unearthing lost tales instead of merely stumbling upon them by accident. Amidst the dappled sunlight, Lyra began to distinguish the whispers. They spoke of a lost kingdom, regal spires stretching towards the sky, and the wars that reduced them to mere myths. The forest seemed alive with the warmth of those memories, an enchanted masterpiece that teetered on the brink of reality and mere fantasy. A chill prickled her skin, a reminder of how history could bite back, like a frosty breeze licking the lips of winter. The air thickened with the sweet yet sour scent of nostalgia mixed with despair, as she envisioned the downfall of once great rulers who had more power than sense, kind of like reality stars in a televised face-off gone wrong. Would their lessons be bound to repeat, trapped here like an unwanted rerun on television? Just as doubt began to creep into her mind, Lyra felt a shift in the atmosphere, the whispers sharpening into coherent thoughts. They spoke of love and betrayal, sorrow and feasts, stories that dripped with the richness of life and the acrid taste of regret. With every haunting note, she could almost see the glamorous ball gowns swirling around her, hear the clinking of goblets and laughter spiraling into the air like fireworks on New Year's Eve. But then came the dark whispers of betrayal, and her heart sank, for behind every joyful moment lay the seeds of tragedy, waiting to burst into chaos like a surprise plot twist. Lyra realized that this glade, with its charm and allure, wasn't just a place for idle fancy. It was a solemn reminder of the echoes that linger on the breath of those who had lived and loved in shadow. As Lyra ventured further into the glade, the air thickened with an unsettling weight, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The once gentle breeze twisted into a chilling wail, carrying with it whispers that tickled her ears like mischievous pixies. Shadows danced at the periphery of her vision, flickering between gnarled roots and moss-covered stones. Each step took her deeper into a realm untouched by time, where echoes of the past stirred, clamoring for attention like a crowd at a rock concert desperate for the spotlight. Here, light stayed shy, hiding behind the thick canopy above, casting the world into a twilight of mystical hues and murky dread, the perfect set for a ghost story, if there ever was one. Suddenly, the whispers coalesced into a chorus of voices, each filled with sorrow and betrayal that tugged at Lyra's heart. She could almost taste the bitterness of regret in the air, sweetened by the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a reminder that this glade had once been vibrant with the laughter of its guardians. The darker secrets weren't just remnants, but heart-wrenching tales weaving through the leaves like vines, binding the spirits of those long gone. Was this place a sanctuary or a prison? Lyra pondered this as the voices urged her to listen closely, each timbre echoing like an old record skipping, haunted by the ghosts of their own misdeeds. Out of the swirling mist, a spectral figure emerged, a man whose ethereal form flickered like an old film reel, frayed at the edges. Rian was his name, the last guardian of the glade, his eyes gleaming with a haunting light. His presence sent a shiver down Lyra's spine, not unlike the moment before a roller coaster plunges into the abyss. With a voice laced with urgency, he begged her for help, revealing a haunting truth. The spirits trapped here could only find release through an act of redemption. Lyra half expected him to offer her a side quest, a fetch quest involving magical artifacts, perhaps. But it was much more serious, filled with the weight of countless unfulfilled promises. Together, they began their quest beneath the haunting canopy, the once sweet scent of wildflowers now replaced by a myriad of odors. Musty wood, wet stone, and the faint coppery hint of lingering despair. Rian guided her, his voice weaving in and out like the wind through the trees, as stories of love lost and friendships shattered echoed around them. With each revelation, Lyra felt her spirit tethered to the plight of the trapped souls, as though her very being were invested in their plight. It was both exhilarating and exhausting, like binge-watching a series so good you forget to take a bathroom break. They needed to confront the past, but standing in the shadows of betrayal, the way forward seemed like trying to win a game of chess while blindfolded. As they navigated deeper, the melancholy murmurs transformed into a hopeful resonance, the glade beginning to pulse with the promise of life returning. Lyra felt the weight of centuries pressing against her back, yet she stood tall, determined to break the cycle of sorrow gripping the haunt. If there was ever an adventure fit for a hero, nay, a heroine, this was it, brimming with the possibility of redemption. In the heart of the glade, perhaps they could turn back time, rewriting the stories of loss with threads of hope. Who knew, with a flick of her wrist and a splash of courage, they could make Eternal Lament the next big hit in the spectral charts, transforming the echoes of despair into a glorious symphony of freedom and peace. In the eerie stillness of the haunted glade, the air thickened with the palpable weight of unspoken dread. Shadows twisted like serpents around ancient trees, their gnarled branches scratching at the pale moonlight that fought to penetrate the forest canopy. Here, amidst a fortress of dark foliage, Lyra and Rian prepared to face the malevolent spirit of a long-forgotten ruler, a tyrant whose rage echoed through time. The scent of damp earth mingled with the sharp bite of fear, making every inhalation a reminder that they were not alone. Rian, ever the optimist, quipped about their choice to explore the world's worst airbnb, where the amenities included haunting, despair, and a side of vengeful spirits. Just your typical check-in experience. Really, as they pushed deeper into the glade, the haunting whispers of the past clawed at Lyra's resolve. Doubt gnawed at her heart like a rat in a cheese factory. The weight of the unknown began to crack the facade she held so tightly. What if this cursed land was just a ruse? The world's most elaborate escape room, designed to crush their very souls. Meanwhile, Rian, brimming with convictions like a superhero in spandex, declared that they would unearth the truth, no matter how many ghostly facepalms awaited them. But deep down, she questioned whether they could handle the trials laid before them, or if they'd become just another set of bones decorating the forest floor. It was then, amidst the rustling leaves that seemed to act like nature's gossiping committee, that they stumbled upon the spirit's lair. An ancient stone throne draped in cobwebs and shadows, where the air itself buzzed with malice. The spirit, once a king draped in glory, now bore the tattered vestiges of betrayal and deceit. A pitiful wail erupted from its spectral lips, reverberating through the glade like a foghorn, announcing the arrival of shipwrecked dreams. Lyra and Rian stood at the precipice of hopelessness, their skin prickling with an icy dread. Yet Lyra felt a flicker of resolve igniting in her chest, like the last light in a dying lantern. She could feel Rian's steady presence, grounding her as the weight of destiny began to wrap around them like a thick, suffocating blanket. Confronting the spirit was not just a battle against an ominous presence, but a fight against history itself, a twisted tapestry of grief and vengeance. As the malevolent ruler unleashed his fury, a cacophony of shrieks pierced the air, mingling with the sound of her own racing heart. Rian shouted words of encouragement, waving his sword like a toddler wielding a pop bottle rocket, while Lyra clutched her amulet tightly, feeling its warmth pulse against her skin like a heartbeat mocking the fear surrounding them. Ghostly visages flitted through the mist, faces twisted in sorrow or rage, as if encouraging them to flee or join their eternal lament. The landscape was a gallery of despair, each ghastly echo a reminder of what lingered within the bounds of this haunted garrison and what awaited beyond its edges. But it was in that moment of despair that Lyra felt a shift in their bond, as if the very essence of the glade recognized their unwavering connection. With every clash of wills, her love for Rian surged, entangling their fates like threads woven into a timeless tapestry. This unyielding connection shielding them from the king's wrath. Lyra's voice broke through the tempest of anguish, a soothing melody amidst the chaos, reminding them both that love, in its purest form, could challenge the darkest shadows. As they faced the spirit, her heart beat in tandem with Rian's, resonating in a rhythm that echoed through the ages. The vow to fight not only for their own lives, but for the countless souls imprisoned by the curse. The haunted glade trembled around them, perhaps sensing the brewing hope amidst the despair, a clashing of trials that would define their very souls. The heart's greatest trial, indeed, as twilight descended over the haunted glade. An unearthly chill breathed through the air, curling like ghostly fingers around Lyra and Rian. Dark shadows danced among the twisted roots and ancient trees, murmuring secrets that only the restless spirits understood. Lyra's heart raced like a drum in battle, each beat echoing the weight of the moment. Here stood the vengeful spirit, a swirling mass of sorrow and rage, its face twisting like a funhouse mirror, flickering with remnants of a life cruelly snatched away. She could taste the bitter tang of fear on her tongue, like burnt toast mingled with coppery dread. Yet she felt an ember of courage burn within her chest, whispering that she must act, and act soon. Rian, beside her, was not merely a companion. He had become her heart's anchor, his presence a tether to both past and future amidst their chaos. The spirit screeched, a sound like nails on a chalkboard, as it unleashed a torrent of memories swirling around them like a tempest. With each memory that erupted, Lyra glimpsed fleeting faces, friends long lost, lovers torn apart, and her heart ached for the echoes of those lives. It was as though time itself had ripped open, casting showers of light through the darkness, illuminating the pain behind every specter. Rian clenched Lyra's hand tightly, his grip like a lifeline in a burning ship, and she could feel the warmth of his pulse mingling with her own. Times like these made her wish for the predictable battles of the Netflix era, where the heroes always triumphed in the final episode. But reality didn't hand out plots. It was messy, unpredictable, like this encounter that had transformed a quiet evening into a twisted confrontation. With a deep breath, she summoned the strength that had always bubbled beneath the surface. Lyra's voice rang out, steady and firm, weaving together her resolve. "I will not let you destroy us," she declared, each word laced with the power of determination. The spirit recoiled momentarily, the charge of her energy creating a ripple, distorting the very air like heat over pavement in a summer haze. In that moment, Lyra channeled not only her feelings for Rian, but also the sorrow of countless souls trapped by the specter's fury. It struck her then, like a revelation from a 90s movie. Saving the world often comes at a cost, and she found herself weighing the life of the one she loved against the safety of her own fate, and that of the countless lives ensnared by this vengeful being. She could almost hear the ticking of an imaginary clock, loudly counting down the seconds in the thickening atmosphere, as if the universe itself paused to watch her choice unfurl. Rion's eyes shone with unwavering belief, urging her silently, as if to say, "You can do this." The haunting wind swirled around them, and Lyra could smell the earth's dampness mixed with remnants of moss and ancient wood, its musty breath a reminder of the past they were locked in battle against. As the spirit surged forward, Lyra recognized that it was holding on to its pain just as tightly as she clutched the truth of her love for Rion. The moment came when irony struck like lightning. What if she could save them both? Not by sealing away the spirit, but by confronting its heartache head-on, understanding that its rage was only a reflection of its sorrow, and perhaps even a reflection of her own. With resolve burning fiercely in her core, Lyra took a step forward, her voice booming. "I see you. I see your pain." She forged ahead, not to seal the spirit away, but to strip away its wrath, layer by layer, revealing the depths of its suffering. The glade erupted into chaos as time bent and twisted around them, a kaleidoscope of memories, regrets, and lingering moments of beauty collided in an explosion of colors and sounds. Overwhelming yet mesmerizing, she felt Rion's hand slip free, the air crackling as reality warped, bending under the weight of emotional catharsis, and she feared for a moment he might vanish, lost to the storm. But if she could confront the spirit's grievances, she might reclaim both their futures from the brink of annihilation. In this dance of fate, she would not just be a spectator, she would be the weaver of their destiny, and her choice would shape the echoes of tomorrow. As the last echoes of turmoil faded into the misty whispers of Eldenwood Forest, Lyra stood alone amidst the towering trees, feeling like the last girl at an after-party, where the only music left was the rustle of leaves. The weight of her choices pressed down on her, heavy as a sack of enchanted potatoes, difficult to carry and slightly stinky. Yet determination sparked in her heart like a knight's sword ignited by a dragon's flame. She had battled darkness, but now it was time to face the consequences, for nestled in those shadows were the souls of the glade yearning for freedom. Well, time to play spirit liberator, she thought, a smirk dancing on her lips as she prepared to confront the restless specters lingering in the light of dawn. After all, nothing said. New beginnings, like a good old-fashioned exorcism, with a side of ghostly forgiveness. Rion, meanwhile, strolled the glade with a guardianship that felt both surreal and wonderfully ironic. The sun dipped below the horizon in a fiery farewell, casting long shadows that seemed to bow respectfully to him, as if he were a rock star in a glittery cloak. He could hardly believe he'd transitioned from wandering heartthrob to the forest's very own librarian of memories, a role that had no clear job description. Did he tell stories? Did he organize the echoes? Whatever the case, He embraced it with gusto, leaving no whisper unturned, as laughter and memories wove an intricate tapestry between the trees, intoxicating as the scent of honeyed mead. Talk about a plot twist. He chuckled while bonded to Lyra by the invisible thread of love, and reckoning a connection stronger than a Wi-Fi signal in a coffee shop brimming with hipsters. As dawn cracked its golden yoke over the horizon, Lyra gathered her resolve, ready to orchestrate the release of the trapped spirits, like a conductor leading an orchestra of melancholy. With each step she took through the dew-kissed grass, she could hear the faint wailing of lost souls, a sound that pierced the morning air like a spaced-out cat's yowl. At 2 a.m., clutching a handful of wildflowers, she whispered ancient words sung by wind and water, a melody that tickled her heart and shivered through the chill of the glade. The flowers pulsed to life, glowing vibrantly, and without warning, the spirits emerged, ethereal, beautiful, and a touch delightful, like a group of ethereal partygoers leaving a once magnificent bash. Guess it's time to go home, folks, Lyra called, her voice resonating like a favorite tune, stuck in everyone's head, catchy and impossible to ignore. As the spirits began to intertwine with the rising light, Lyra felt her heart warm, a bittersweet sensation tugging at her, like realizing that the last slice of pizza has been devoured by a hungry friend. Each ghostly form shimmered with gratitude, their faces lighting up under the glow of a dawn that heralded a fresh start. Rian stood beside her, the embodiment of calm amidst the chaos, grinning like someone who just found out they were a surprise contestant on a game show. Together, they witnessed the beauty of release. Chains once forged in sorrow fell away like peeling paint, revealing the vibrant, living history of Eldenwood. Lyra's love for Rian thrummed through her like bass notes in a rock anthem, resilient and ever-present, promising to keep history alive even as the spirits danced into the light, leaving behind echoing laughter behind them. As the sun fully ascended, casting rays of sunlight that splintered through the trees like golden fingers, Lyra turned her gaze to the heart of the glade, her heart swelling with a fierce blend of joy and melancholy. And so ends the chapter of Haunted Whispers. But the tale goes on, she mused aloud, her voice barely a ripple in the now tranquil atmosphere. She made a silent vow to the glade, vowing to capture its stories and ensure that the echoes of the past would never fade into silence, like the last desperate plea for a sequel to a beloved movie. With the aroma of damp earth mingling with sweet blooms, Lyra felt the pulse of the glade affirm her promise. It was a place of heroes, laughter, and lessons learned, forever etched in the fabric of time. As she walked hand in hand with Rian, their footsteps whispered the remnants of their journey, a timeless tale echoing in the dawn's embrace, a new dawn, indeed, in the heart of the twilight thicket, where moonlight waltzed through the leaves like a tipsy dancer, lived a young dreamweaver named Alara. Her long, silver hair flowed behind her like a comet's tail as she roamed the woods, humming tunes that swirled and shimmered in the air like iridescent bubbles. The scent of blooming nightshade mingled with the earthy aroma of damp moss, creating a heady perfume that was both intoxicating and reminiscent of nostalgia. For Alara, weaving dreams into songs was as natural as breathing, filling her days with melodies that could charm a squirrel into sharing its acorns, or lull a restless fox into a peaceful slumber. She was the guardian of the secret melodies, crafting symphonies that soothed the souls of all creatures, from the tiniest ladybug to the fiercest direwolf, reminding them that their fears were but shadows passing through the night sky. But in this enchanting haven where dreams danced playfully, a sinister chill crept like a cat with a vendetta. The night stalkers, lurking just beyond the fringes of light, were a gang of ghoulish swords who relished nothing more than upheaval and mischief. With their hollow eyes and jagged smiles, they moved through the trees like bad ideas in a B-grade horror film, whispering dark desires to anyone who dared listen. They hungered for the dream songs, envisioning their own twisted symphonies composed of nightmares and despair. Picture it: a guitar solo played in a minor key, combined with the gut-wrenching screams of your favorite sitcom character. That was the kind of melody they craved, and they'd stop at nothing to get it. One fateful twilight, as the skies dripped gold and purple, Alara sensed a disturbance in the thicket, a ripple of unease that made her heart race faster than a caffeinated rabbit. She hopped from tree to tree, her senses attuned to the very vibrations of the air, like a tiny bloodhound on the scent of bacon. It was here, amidst the groaning trunks and rustling leaves, that she first caught sight of the night stalkers, slumped against an ancient oak, their gnarled fingers scratching the bark, as if trying to peel away the secrets of her song. Alara's pulse quickened, and she wondered if running was an option. Spoiler alert: it wasn't, because dreams never come with an exit strategy, especially when one's weighing their odds against a bunch of shadowy gremlins. In that moment, Alara understood the true power of her gift. The songs were not just mere notes strung together. They held the very essence of hope, a weapon sharper than any blade. And as the night stalkers writhed and hissed, their twisted forms momentarily caught in a web of her vibrant melodies, she knew the battle was far from over. With a grin that could rival the Cheshire Cat's, Alara summoned the dreamers of the thicket, their ethereal forms emerging as if from the pages of an ancient poem. Together they soared above the treetops, a symphony of light and sound that shimmered against the twilight, proving that even in a world draped in shadows, the heart of a dreamweaver can illuminate the darkest corners. In the dimming light of the twilight thicket, Alara could hear the faintest of murmurs, like the rustling of leaves whispering secrets forbidden. It was said that the Night Stalkers, that shadowy ensemble of troublemakers, were brewing a plot deeper than an ogre's belly after a 5-course meal. The very air tingled with urgency, sending a shiver down her spine. With determination glinting in her emerald eyes, she gathered her courage, pushing aside the creeping fear like a kid, shoving a broccoli stalk off their dinner plate. Each step she took felt weighted, as if the thicket itself was trying to deter her path with its gnarled roots and brambles reaching out like grasping fingers from some dark fairy tale gone wrong. Alara soon found herself face to face with her trusty companions. Orion, the wizened owl who had seen more moonlit nights than most creatures care to remember, and Bramble, the fox with a heart as big as his appetite for mischief. Orion perched, far too dignified for a good night out, his feathers a cascade of twilight hues, blended perfectly into the shadows. Ah, the secrets of the Night Stalkers, like a good plot twist in a soap opera, always leave you guessing, he mused, his voice low and dripping with sage-like charm. Bramble, with his rust-red fur glowing like coppers in the fading light, rolled his eyes, clearly skeptical. Can we skip to the part where we kick some shadowy behinds? He quipped, already eager for adventure, a hint of mischief sparkling in his eyes. The trio decided to convene at the Heartstone glade, a clearing bathed in the ethereal glow of the Dreamstone, where every shimmering leaf seemed to pulse with ancient power. Oh, it was a sight for sore eyes, the kind that could make a bard compose a sonnet on the spot. If only the bard wasn't currently busy hiding behind a bush, trembling at the thought of a Night Stalker. As Alara spread her map, the scent of damp earth and wildflowers wafted in the air, mingling with the sweet piquancy of dreams. The thicket buzzed with a vibrant energy, a refrain of chirping crickets and rustling leaves, conducting a symphony of life. If adventure had a smell, it would have smelled exactly like this, a heady perfume of anticipation and courage, spiked with a tinge of danger that danced in the air like electrifying static before a storm. As they regrouped at the Heartstone glade, their makeshift coalition felt as robust as a bowl of stew packed with all the good bits, though perhaps a pinch of chaos was also required. Together, their differing talents and amusing eccentricities had transformed them into a force beyond measure, ready to confront the shadowy figments lurking just out of sight. Alara, feeling the pulse of resolve surge within her, knew they were on the brink of something monumental, a clash that would echo through the annals of the twilight thicket long after the last ember of dusk. With the dreamstone shimmering in the heart of it all, Alara felt an electric thrill, a wild notion that maybe, just maybe, they could outsmart the Night Stalkers and protect the very essence of their home, victory or failure. She knew this journey would sing songs that would linger long into the night, leaving a legend in its wake, much like a particularly adventurous episode of those campfire ghost stories that left you shivering in delight. As the sun dipped behind the twisted boughs of the thicket, casting eerie shadows that danced like ghouls in a dim-lit tavern, Alara gathered her ragtag band of allies. With courage stitched into the fabric of her heart, she led them deeper into the woodland's embrace, where the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss. Every rustle of leaves echoed like a warning bell, as if the very trees whispered tales of dread. With each step, they could almost hear the ghostly echoes of lost melodies floating through the air, taunting them, urging them to turn back. But Alara, fueled by a fierce determination reminiscent of those Hero vs. Villain shows from her childhood, pressed forward, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead for the sake of her beloved home. As they ventured onward, the thicket revealed its dark side, a realm of magical barriers more slippery than a greased pig at a county fair. Spellbinding illusions weaved skillfully by the Night Stalkers emerged like jagged shards of glass, distorting their surroundings, until reality felt like a cruel joke. Faces morphed into nightmarish visages, and paths twisted like pretzels, warping time and space into a dizzying spectacle that would make any funhouse look tame. Laughter bubbled up involuntarily at the absurdity of it all, but fear lurked beneath the surface, the chilling realization that the Night Stalkers were playing a dangerous game. However, amid the chaos, Alara felt her friend's presence like a warm glow on a frigid night, reminding her that together they could shatter any illusion seriously, just like the Fellowship of the Ring cutting through Sauron's lies. Resilience became the heartbeat of their journey, a rhythm they danced to as they stumbled through trials that tested their very essence. In one harrowing moment, they faced a ghastly illusion of a smoldering ruin of their hometown. The crackle of fire, so real it burned their hearts, yet laughter bubbled up again when Jax, ever the joker, quipped about how well their town would fare against fire, considering it barely survived Alara's infamous spilled potion incident last summer. Just as they began to despair, Alara's unwavering spirit sparked a glimmer of hope, illuminating the path ahead as courage took the wheel. They pressed onward, their camaraderie glowing brighter than the enchanted lanterns that hung like watchful eyes from the branches above. guiding them toward their goal. Fate finally led them to a clearing, a sanctuary nestled like a precious gem among the tangled roots and towering trees, an ancient space filled with the pulse of magic. Here, amidst a symphony of crickets and the gentle rustle of leaves, Alara felt a whisper of a long-lost melody crawl into her ears. It shimmered like stardust, a haunting tune crafted by dreamweavers long ago, its essence entwined with the very fabric of the thicket. With a flick of her fingers, she began to hum, and as her notes rose into the air, she felt the heavy gloom of darkness lift, a fragile thread of hope weaving through her allies' hearts. They stood, a band of warrior bards, poised to unleash a melody that could counteract the Night Stalkers, reminding them that even in the depths of despair, music, friendship, and laughter can spark unparalleled defiance. As they gathered their resolve, Alara and her friends pledged to harness this hidden melody, their voices rising in a harmony that shivered through the air like the first light of dawn breaking through the night. Their notes surged, wrapping around them like protective armor against the encroaching shadows, a reminder that they were not alone in this battle. The thicket held its breath, as if it too recognized the sacred power of their song, echoing the magic that had once thrived in this enchanted land. Each heartbeat matched the rhythm of their thrill, a terrifying dance with destiny that compelled them to keep pressing forward. Ready or not, the lost melody had awakened, and now it was their turn to unleash it against the darkness, proving that sometimes even the smallest voices can create the loudest pandemonium. Underneath the gnarled branches of the ancient dream tree, the air hummed with tension, thick like caramelized honey. Alara and her friends stood shoulder to shoulder, a ragtag bunch of dreamers gathered for a battle beyond their wildest imagination, while the fearsome Night Stalkers slipped through the shadows like sneaky ninjas at a pizza party. Towering over them was Queen Nocturne, her eyes gleaming like obsidian under a blacklight, and her voice slithered through the air like a serpent in search of prey. The deep, guttural laugh of the queen sent a chill down Alara's spine, like ice water swimming in her veins, as she readied herself for the fight of their lives. As the Night Stalkers emerged from the darkness, their forms twisted and bent, a cacophony of witless hisses and mutterings filled the air. It was as if the shadows had hunched over, forming grotesque figures that danced in sinister laughter until they weren't laughing anymore. The clash of dreams and nightmares erupted around them, colors exploding like the finale of a particularly loud 4th of July celebration. The ground reverberated with the weight of powerful feet, and the scent of damp earth mixed with the acrid tang of fear hung ugly in the air. It was as if nature itself held its breath, in anticipation of the chaos to come. In the thick of the battle, Alara searched deep within herself, feeling the rhythm of her heart synchronize with the pulsing beat of the dream tree. Memories of laughter, camaraderie, and of fleeting moments of brilliance spiraled around her like fireflies on a summer night, igniting a melody she had never known she possessed. It was an odd feeling, like finding an old mixtape you thought was lost, discovering it filled with tracks you'd forgotten, but loved all the same. With every note, she called upon her friends, urging them to stand strong. Their shared hope rang out like a beacon amidst the swirling shadows, a lighthouse guiding lost ships back home. As Alara unleashed the hidden melody, the air crackled with an electric energy that shimmered and danced. Wisps of light shot forth like a cosmic flash mob, swirling gracefully above them, as if the very stars had joined the fray. The once dreadful night stalkers recoiled, their faces melting with confusion and fear, reminiscent of a kid who just realized their Halloween candy was filled with raisins. Alara's song transformed into a powerful anthem of light, igniting the dreams that had long been buried beneath layers of sorrow, unveiling the strength that came from unity. The clashing darkness faltered, flickering like the dying embers of a campfire, trying desperately to stay alight under a deluge of rain. With renewed fervor, Alara led her friends in an exuberant dance of hope, the air alive with brilliant light and wild laughter, replacing the heavy blanket of despair that had smothered their home. The dream tree thrummed vibrantly, a cathedral of magic and memory, glowing brighter than any superhero's suit as it rallied toward the fight. Under the brilliance of their united dreams, the night stalkers began to splinter, the shadows shrinking back into their dark corners, their bravado evaporating like a bad fart in a closed room. And there, where once fear reigned, now stood laughter and hope, a celebration of dreams that danced defiantly against the darkness. The battle of dreams had taken a life of its own, and Alara knew, deep down, that their melody would echo long after the last shadow faded. With the night stalkers vanquished, the twilight thicket erupted in joy like a soda can shaken too long, the fizz bubbling over with laughter and celebration. Radiant sunlight streamed through the once dim branches, illuminating the vibrant greens and golds that twinkled like confetti in the breeze. Alara, crowned in the fragrant blossoms of dawn, felt like a rock star at the end of an epic concert. The symphony of life around her buzzed an encore of chirps, howls, and whispers. She knew it wasn't just the defeat of an enemy, but the rebirth of a dream. A stage where every creature, from the tiniest to the tallest, would play their part in the grand performance of the thicket. Like a true diva, she struck a pose, ready to embrace her new role as the dreamweaver, who spun dreams like fairy floss at a carnival, pastel and sticky with whimsy. As days turned into weeks, the thicket became a vibrant canvas splashed with the colors of exuberance and unity. Creatures who once lurked in the shadows now gathered in the dappled sunlight to share their secrets, their fears, and most importantly, their songs. The resplendent glow of camaraderie filled the air, as if a drunk party-goer had tipped over a piñata full of glitter and magic. The delicate hum of bees mingling with the intricate melodies of larks created an orchestra of nature, each note telling a tale of hope and resilience. And let me tell you, navigating through this chaotic concert wasn't unlike trying to find a Wi-Fi signal in the middle of a forest. Delightful, yet completely disorienting. But Alara stood at the helm, a conductor of this joyous cacophony, ensuring harmony reigned supreme. Under Alara's guidance, the art of dreaming was transformed from a solitary pursuit into a community affair, richer than a triple chocolate fudge cake. Each new dream shared was like adding a dash of spice to Grandma's secret recipe. Unpredictable, perhaps, but oh so worth it. Foxes serenaded the moon with haunting ballads, while rabbits held impromptu rap battles in the underbrush, their rhymes bouncing off the trees like rubber balls in a schoolyard. Alara listened, chuckling to herself as she thought about how these once timid critters had turned into the rock stars of the thicket. In their joyous performances, she recognized that dreams were not just her burden to bear, but a legacy to be woven together, a collective tapestry sewn with laughter and love. As the seasons shifted, so too did the dreams swirl around the thicket like a fragrant breeze, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh dew. Alara could see their shimmering trails, each colorful strand a reminder of the fears that had been cast aside, and the joy that blossomed in their place. It was like watching the world's oldest soap opera unravel before her eyes, filled with twists, plotlines, and cliffhangers that kept everyone on the edge of their seats. With each glowing thread threaded through the dreams of her companions, Alara felt the weight of responsibility was replaced by a sense of belonging, like snagging the last piece of pizza at a party and realizing you weren't alone in wanting it. In those moments, she understood how important it was to preserve the secrets of the dreamweavers, the soulful whispers of the thicket that echoed through the ages. And so, in that new dawn, the twilight thicket thrived lavishly, its melodies reverberating like echoes of gossip in a high school hallway. Alara knew that they had created something timeless, a fierce anthem to be sung again and again. Through every dawn, every twilight, the thicket had become a living testament to dreams woven into reality, a vibrant reminder that together they could guard the secrets of the Dreamweavers against the shadows that had once threatened their light. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the land, every creature nestled into their homes, dreaming their dreams loud and proud, promising each other that the tunes they had crafted would never be lost to the void. It was, without a doubt, the dawn of a new era, where echoing songs carried them into the future, like a legendary soundtrack that would resonate for all time. In a quaint village cradled by rolling hills and whispered legends, young Alara spent her days dreaming under the vast sky, where stars twinkled like cheeky sprites looking down on her. Her grandmother's tales wove intricate tapestries of fantastical creatures lurking within the mysterious starry wood, where shadows danced and secrets slumbered amid gnarled trees. The old woman spoke of fairies flitting on the breeze like dandelion seeds, and mischievous goblins who hid behind thick brambles, waiting to pinch the curious for a laugh. Alara's heart raced with the thrill of adventure, each story igniting her imagination like a spark to dry kindling. What if I'm the heroine of my own tale? She pondered, her spirit bouncing like a rubber ball in her chest, as she resolved to explore the mighty wood herself, spooning her grandmother's old folktales into her pocket like lucky charms. With a determined glint in her eye and a trusty companion at her side, Alara set forth into the embrace of the starry wood, where every rustle of leaves echoed secrets begging to be discovered. Finn, her clever fox with a bushy tail and a nose for adventure sharper than attack, pranced alongside her, pawing at the ground like he was searching for buried treasure. The air hung heavy with the earthy scent of damp moss and dampened dreams, inviting them deeper into the green labyrinth. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, creating dappled patterns on the forest floor, each spot promising its own stories, each shadow concealing delightful mysteries. As they ventured further, a curious chorus of chirps and rustling sounds enveloped them, a reminder that they were no longer in the mundane world, but in a place where whimsy reigned and every creature might just have a tale of its own. Every twist and turn along the winding path revealed wonders that made Alara gasp and Finn chuckle with glee. They stumbled upon a circle of mushrooms that looked suspiciously like a set from a fairy movie, too perfect to be nature's handiwork. Breathless, Alara couldn't resist investigating, and with each step, the forest seemed to lean in, eager for their next move. Suddenly, a cloud of glittering dust burst into the air as a tiny creature zoomed past, leaving a trail of shimmer, whispering, "Follow me if you dare." Alara barely had time to gasp at the glittering leaf-like wings before Finn darted forward, as if saying, "Show me your best move, forest." With fluffs of laughter and a sprinkle of daring, their adventure had truly begun. As they wound deeper into the thicket, Alara felt a tickle of apprehension nestle like a squirrel in her belly. The once cheerful canopy grew thicker, casting a tapestry of shadow that transformed their surroundings into a multitude of fleeting shapes, some of which may not have had good intentions. The haunting hoot of an owl echoed like a cosmic joke, while strange, rustling whispers seemed to tease them from every direction, making Finn puff out his chest in faux bravado. "What do you think they're saying? Maybe we should ask for directions," he teased, his eyes sparkling mischievously. But amidst the vibrant terror, Alara felt an exhilarating rush, a reminder that courage often waltzes hand in hand with uncertainty, and their journey was only just beginning. With her heart pounding like a tiny drummer, Alara pressed on, drawn toward the melody of adventure that rang out louder than the rustling branches. Soon they reached a glade where the air shimmered, and creatures danced under the radiant glow of fireflies that blinked like disco lights at a 70s dance-off. Here, surrounded by the magic of the wood, Alara realized she wasn't just unearthing tales of old. She was crafting her own legend. And Finn, ever her faithful sidekick, prepared for whatever came next. With wide eyes sparkling brighter than the stars above, they stepped into the circle of enchanted beings, hearts racing with the promise of the unknown. Little did they know, the starry wood held tales that even their imaginations could scarcely contain, setting the stage for an adventure that would become a timeless fable of its own. As Alara and Finn stepped further into the heart of the starry wood, the air seemed to hum with magic, as if the very trees whispered ancient secrets through rustling leaves. Sunlight dappled the ground, creating playful patterns that danced like mischievous spirits beneath their feet. "Do you smell that?" Finn said, wrinkling his nose as they meandered past a patch of flowers that smelled suspiciously like pancakes on a Sunday morning. Suddenly, a low hoot echoed through the air, and they turned to see a wise old owl perched upon a gnarled branch, its huge round eyes twinkling with unfathomable knowledge, like a librarian who had seen too many absurd poetry slams. This was the moment their real adventure began, a riddle waiting to unfurl like the petals of those deceptively syrupy flowers. The wise owl cleared its throat, a sound like an old boot scraping on gravel, and announced, "To pass my tree, answer this riddle. I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with the wind. What am I?" Alara frowned, scratching her head as if trying to dislodge a stubborn chip from her brain. Finn, who had recently deemed himself a master of trivia thanks to late-night binge-watching of quiz shows, puffed out his chest and proclaimed, "I got this. It's an echo." wise owl blinked, its expression a mixture of surprise and mild disappointment. It must have expected some sort of wild guess involving a sausage roll. Yet, its approval earned them the rite of passage, and they pressed on, their minds racing like race cars on an empty track, filled with anticipation of what lay ahead. But it wasn't long before they stumbled into the territory of the sprites. Oh, those tiny mischief makers who were part elf and part whirlwind. Swirling around them like glittery tornadoes, the sprites giggled and cackled, their laughter high-pitched and slightly unsettling, like a tea party gone horribly awry. Alara barely had time to shield her eyes from a flurry of popping bright colors before one little sprite darted up and snatched Finn's cap, which flew into the air like it had just been nominated for an Oscar. Finn, indignant and desperate to reclaim his beloved headwear, lunged after it, only to find himself tangled in a weeping willow, whose branches promised a good chat, if only he could understand the delicate tree's grievances. The forest vibrated with chaos as the sprites darted and dazzled, their pranks both exhilarating and exhausting, leaving the duo breathless and wondering if they'd accidentally stumbled into a bizarre midsummer night's dream audition. With the cap finally retrieved, much to Finn's relief, they forged onward and found themselves standing before a river that twisted and turned like a confused snake. The water shimmered with a brilliance that rivaled the finest diamonds, casting reflections that flickered and winked as if the river itself had a playful personality. But there was no time for daydreaming, because the current called out, sounding like a booming voice demanding a toll, a riddle for the water spirits, no less. Alara stepped hesitantly to the edge, feeling the cool mist brushing her cheeks, while Krill leaped through the air, glistening like little splashy fireworks, with her heart racing like an over-caffeinated squirrel. She prepared herself to face yet another puzzling challenge, her determination strong enough to power a small village on laundry day. Thus the merry duo pressed on, their courage as buoyant as the shimmering gold in the river. Each puzzling challenge unveiled a new layer of magic, revealing the wonders of the starry wood. Color-charged butterflies flitted past their ears, while the sound of a distant drumbeat felt like the heartbeat of the Enchanted Forest. Yet, with each victory, Alara couldn't shake off the feeling that they were merely pawns in a larger game, perhaps orchestrated by the very beings they encountered. Clenching her fists and mustering her bravest demeanor, she joked to Finn, "If we run into any more riddles, I might just start quoting Shakespeare to them. Nothing like a little tragic poetry to confuse the sprites." As she spoke, a distant echo of laughter swept through the trees, and they grinned boldly at each other, ready to embrace whatever absurdity awaited just beyond the lush, whispering foliage, in the heart of the starry wood, where sunlight danced upon emerald leaves, Alara and Finn pranced merrily along the winding path, their laughter mingling with the soft whispers of the trees. But as they ventured deeper, the vibrant hues faded, replaced by a troubling gray mist that clung to them like an unwanted fog at a family reunion. The air grew thick, heavy with an acrid odor reminiscent of burnt toast, definitely not the enchanted aroma they were used to. A shiver splintered down Alara's spine, and she squinted into the swirling gloom, her heart thumping with both excitement and dread. "This doesn't seem right, Finn," she muttered, all too aware that the only enchantment here was that of impending doom, far more terrifying than any family member's old ghost stories. The Shadow King wasted no time, lunging forward with an aura of despair that chilled the air faster than a snowman in July. "I shall claim your magic, vibrant souls," he howled, anger coloring his voice like an over-caffeinated squirrel. Alara felt her heart race, each beat a war drum urging her to act. She knew that here, in this cursed glade, hesitation could very well be the end of their journey, and of the starry wood itself. "What do we do now?" whispered Finn, his bravado crumbling like a cookie in a rainstorm. She took a deep breath, summoning the courage of all the heroines in fairy tales, each of whom had faced similar shadows. And then she felt a spark ignite within, the kind of kick-in-the-pants magic that could either save them or turn her into the next fabled ghost of the glade. Alara closed her eyes, her thoughts racing faster than a caffeinated rabbit, as she tried to remember the stories her grandmother told of confronting darkness with light. If only she had been paying better attention during those long, cozy nights. Gathering her thoughts, she opened her eyes and shouted, "You may thrive in shadows, but your reign is temporary. Light can pierce through the darkest night." The words felt odd, rolling off her tongue as she planted her feet firmly on the shifting ground, searching for the courage she never knew she had. The air rippled around them, and she felt a warmth blooming in her chest, as if she were the star player in a mythical basketball game, where her team needed just one heroic shot to win. In that moment, she decided she wouldn't let fear dictate her choices. Not here, and not ever again. With the clash of wills echoing in the air, the glade around them transformed, the mist swirling with newfound energy as Alara summoned the magic flowing through the roots of the starry wood. The Shadow King faltered, his sneer wavering as the light of hope began to illuminate the depths of his darkened heart. Alara's courage roared like a phoenix escaping its ashes, igniting the very essence of their realm, the balance between dark and light. Finally, as the first rays of dawn banished the suffocating mist, Finn let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, and the glade sparkled with the victory of purity over malevolence. And in that moment, standing hand in hand with her friend beside the crumbling remnants of the Shadow King's power, Alara realized that true magic didn't just lie in spells or enchantments, but in the choices they made, choices that echoed through the enchanted realms like the soundtrack of a coming-of-age movie. The moon hung low in the ink-black sky, casting an eerie glow over the starry wood, where the trees rustled with a sense of foreboding, as if even they were holding their breath. Alara stood at the heart of the forest, her heart racing like a frightened rabbit in a room full of wolves. Around her gathered an eclectic troop of friends. Silva the elf, with hair as green as the spring leaves, Jax the stout dwarf, brandishing an axe, almost as heavy as himself, and Nia the cheeky sprite, buzzing like a caffeinated bumblebee. Together, they prepared to face the Shadow King, a creature of nightmares who loomed like a dark cloud over their tightly knit community. Alara felt the thrum of the wood's magic at her fingertips, a tingling reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight, despite the chaos brewing just beyond the tree line like a pot left too long on the stove. As storm clouds rolled in, thick and oppressive, the winds howled like a pack of wolves, throwing sticks and leaves into a frenzied dance of despair. Shadows stretched across the ground, twisting and changing shape like a cruel optical illusion. "Well, this is just peachy," Jax muttered, gnashing his teeth while gripping his axe with white knuckles. Alara's heart fell, but just as quickly warm tendrils of magic unraveled within her as she recalled the laughter, the shared stories, and the bonds forged in trials and triumphs. The essence of the forest seeped into her soul, whispering that she carried more than just her own courage. She had the strength of her friends behind her, an unbreakable tether forged through adventure, mishaps, and far too many close calls involving Jax and a honeycomb. With a deep breath that tasted of pine and tension, Alara raised her arms, and the very air around them shimmered like the finest glitter at a craft store explosion. A brilliant light erupted from her fingers, illuminating the clearing and revealing the heart of the forest in full glory. A pulsing tree adorned with luminous petals that glowed like tiny stars. The Shadow King materialized from the gloom, his form a dark silhouette, but his presence a palpable weight, a chill in the air that made every hair stand up like a frightened cat. "Your time is up, shadowy dude," Alara shouted, her voice a mix of bravado and shaky uncertainty. Her resolve hardened as she realized that this wasn't merely about magic. It was about fighting for the home they all cherished, a place where laughter mingled with the scent of wildflowers and the echo of splashing streams. The clash of wills was more than a battle. It resembled a twisted game of dodgeball played on a treacherous cliff, each participant teetering on the brink of oblivion. Alara hurled bursts of light toward the Shadow King, illuminating his fearsome features, while her friends rushed forward with all the enthusiasm of squirrels on espresso. Jax took a swing with his axe that missed spectacularly, but whirled around, turning an embarrassing fumble into a wild tree kick that sent chunks of bark flying. All while Silva sent arrows of green energy that crackled in the air like an angry lightning bolt. Each arrow released a song, their chorus embodying the forest's spirit and rallying Alara's confidence. The tussle was messy and exhilarating. Who knew defeating darkness could feel like playing in the mud while wearing your favorite boots? In the deafening chaos, the looming darkness began to falter, for the bonds of friendship proved to be the most potent magic of all. With a final, fervent push fueled by laughter, camaraderie, and an unexpected dance move from Nia that resembled a very confused chicken, Alara unleashed a beam of brilliant light that pierced the Shadow King's heart, sending shockwaves of brilliance through the wood. The air hummed with joy, and the forest erupted in color as the Shadow King's despair morphed into mist, dissipating like bad Wi-Fi during a crucial moment in a game. Alara dropped to her knees, breathless and covered in grime, but glowing with a delight that could put even the sun to shame. In that heart-pounding moment, she realized that true strength wasn't just about defeating the darkness. It was about embracing the wild, beautiful chaos of friendship and the courage it inspired within her. Likewise, the starry wood regained its vibrant pulse, the weight of sorrow lifting as laughter, and love echoed between the trees, echoing a tale that would be told for many moons to come. As dawn's first light splashed vibrant oranges and soft golds across the landscapes of the starry wood, Alara and Finn emerged from the clutches of darkness into a realm transformed. The air buzzed with the unmistakable fragrance of blooming wildflowers, carrying whispers of adventure on the light morning breeze. The massive trees, once haunted by the Shadow King's gloom, stood tall and proud, their leaves shimmering like emeralds in the sun's warm embrace. Just a few weeks earlier, these woods had borne witness to a battle of epic proportions. But here, nestled in this enchanted sanctuary, the only clash was the sound of joyful laughter echoing through the branches, as newfound peace wrapped around them like a beloved quilt.